I cannot put it in words to describe to you what you're gonna see. And I want, I'd love for everybody to have an encounter and everybody to see one, but I want people to be safe about it. And the problem that I have, and it worries me for people, is I see people that want the encounter so bad that they throw safety out the window. And I got it, they want an encounter. But guys, it's just, you're dealing with something that could absolutely pull you limb from limb at a whim. Uh, and I'm with Troy, just like Coonbo says. These things are not bloodthirsty. They're not out here trying to kill folks. Because if they was, we would be extinct right now. Yeah, I mean, there's not a. You'd have to be in a bank vault to keep them from getting to you. I mean, what I've seen, they'd walk up and just push their way through a wall. I mean, they would absolutely stick their arm through a window and jerk the wall out. I mean, it's amazing. It's crazy. And it's hard to get your mind around it. And even the encounters I've had, the sightings I've had, you still, at some point in time, you're going to question your sanity. And question, I saw that. You'll be saying, but I did see it. And you know you saw it. But it's still, so many people, or they don't exist. And you have to come to grips with that. And guys, I'm telling you, I've got PTSD from some of the very bad encounters that I've had. Because I mean, when PJ Arkansas was here yesterday, and I got to talk to her for a short time, and I've got to talk to that lady, but when she was on that podcast the other night, a week or so back, guys, I sit there and watch that lady's face, and I saw the emotion. I could hear it in her voice. I could see it in her face. When she was talking about, she had to be careful talking about her encounters because she would go too deep in it, discussing it. And you don't just remember it. You step back into that encounter and it's like you're reliving it. And a lot of my encounters, if I get too deep in it and I let my mind drop back in it, guys, I'll have nightmares for weeks. I'll be shaking and it washes over me and it will break me down. Because guys, I mean, I tell people, I've been law enforcement nearly 16 years. I've done felony warrants, drug raids, we kicked in doors. I mean, about anything nasty you think of law enforcement, I've had a part of it. I've been shot at multiple times. I've had people draw knives. I'll tell people I've rolled with dope addicts and drunks, and the mud, the blood, and the beer. And not one time have I even been remotely as afraid as I have been in the woods right there at my own place. It's just phenomenal. But guys, about all I want to touch on is, you know, like I said, I look at these guys right here as brothers. And just like I told everybody, like everybody here, it's amazing at how blessed I am. The people that's drove halfway across the country to come be here with us. Guys, we're blessed with the people that's here. Because this is like coming to me, it's like coming to a family reunion. It's phenomenal, the group of people that's here. All walks of life. And it's amazing that this is what's brought us together. And it's unreal, because you can go talk to anybody here, and in this whole camp, there's not going to be any ridicule. There's not going to be anybody make fun of you about anything. You got people that's going to talk to you and be open with you, and it's unreal. You're not going to find this anywhere. So, I mean, it's crazy. So, I'm going to hand this back off to Coonbo, and we'll let him talk for 45 minutes, maybe.
Now, I was just going to ask, anybody got any questions they'd like to shoot our way?
I had one and I
I've
can't
got
remember
one that, like Greg was talking about. You hear them coming up, knocking the house so hard the whole house shakes, but they cannot bust a window.
They're not
That's what I'm
They
saying.
don't want to.
They're not trying to get in.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
They are the masters of intimidation.
Tell about the time the one slapped while you were in the trailer and the one slapped the wall.
Yeah, I had gotten one mad at me down in Mississippi, and y'all have probably all heard this story 500 times, but
No, they haven't. Tell them how. Tell them how you got it mad.
well, there used to be a thing back in the early days of the internet called Pal Talk, and it was the first site out there where you had the first site where you had full duplex, two-way communication, voice communication on the internet. And later they developed a way where you could post up photos and such. And M.K. Davis, bless his heart, had gotten a really good recording of a what we call the siren call. That is an alpha male dominance call, and the one he had gotten lasted about 25 seconds, which that's a little bit shorter than normal. We've recorded lots of them that stretched out 45, 50 seconds or longer, a little bit longer. Anyway, he was playing it on Pal Talk, and everybody, we'd get on there most every night and open up a Bigfoot room. Of course, we had a lot of trolls and stuff. We'd throw them out as soon as they started acting up. But anyway, MK played that, and of course, as soon as he got it done, somebody asked, play it again. So he played it again, and play it again. Well, it just kept people, he was playing it over and over, and I had laundry to do, and I had a killer surround sound system on my computer then, and I had it cranked up pretty loud. I turned the volume up so I could hear back in the utility room. I could hear what they were saying. And man, when he'd play that siren call, it was just about rattling the windows. And I'm back in the utility room. Here comes my big old German Shepherd Bo running down the hallway. He ran. Let's get in him. And he ran in the bedroom, and he hit the closet door slid. He hit the door so hard, one of those sliding doors, so he knocked it off the trap and dove over in the back of the closet in behind of a bunch of boxes and stuff. And right behind him, here came Mandy. I had a full-blooded southern mountain cur. She goes running there, and she gets under the bed. What's the matter with those dogs? And about that time, I walked up towards the living room, and I heard that siren call again, and suddenly I realized it wasn't coming out of my computer, my speaker system. It was coming from out in the backyard. And I looked out the back door had a pretty good sized window in it, and I had curtains over it. I eased curtains back, and I looked out there, and we had what we call a booger light or a yard light in the backyard, had one in the front yard. And standing right there underneath that dadgum light in the backyard, he obviously wanted to make sure that I saw him good. There was about an 8.5 foot tall booger, what we call the type 2 or the swamp ape type or Neanderthal type. And that son of a gun saw me pull that curtain back, and he was about as far as here, that tree right there from me, and he made eye contact with me, and he sucked in a bunch of air, about like a baby when you startle a baby and it takes a little bit to suck in enough air to holler. I saw that dude sucking in air, and he bowed up and he cut loose. he cut loose and screamed that siren call right back at me. And I said, oh my goodness, or something to that effect. Anyway, I yanked that curtain shut and got back out of the way, and I went back in the living room, and I turned the lights off in the living room. And I turned off all the lights in the house. And it wasn't but just a little bit. I heard the steps that came up onto the back deck. The back door opened up onto a deck. And there were steps right there, and I heard those steps squeaking coming up on the deck. And there was a big shadow came across the window. And the curtains are shut, but you could see the shadow. And covered up the entire window. And I'm like, oh my God. And I eased over, and I had a Mossberg pump shotgun, a riot gun. I grabbed that thing. It was full of double-aught buck. And I scooted the couch around, and I got behind the couch, and I rested that shotgun up over the back of the sofa, pointed at the back door. And then, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I didn't have any curtains in the front window. And we had another yard light in the front yard, and the light from that was shining through the front window and against the back wall of the living room where the back door was. And I heard a faint noise, and I looked, and the doorknob was turning very, very slowly. And I noticed above that the deadbolt was unlocked. The deadbolt wasn't turned. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to come in here. But it had that old, you don't see them much anymore, the old style of doorknob where you pushed it and turned it to lock it. And thank the Lord it was locked. And I couldn't see the knob or anything. But that doorknob very, very, very slowly turned about 15, 20 degrees and stopped. And it goes back the other way and stops. And then back the other way. And it sat there and it tried that doorknob 2 or 3 times. And then it walked further up on the deck. And I could tell by the way the shadow moved, it was coming further up on the deck. It stayed up there a minute or two. Then it came off, messed with the doorknob again, came down the stairs, off out through the carport, and it was gone. And man, when I got up from there, like I said, I've been around these things, but I've never had one mess with me that close, mess with the house that I was living in. And I got up there, and I was shaking like a dog pooping peach pits. And I decided I'm going to bed. And I had already killed the computer, and I went back and I got to bed, and I was going to get to bed. I was afraid to get undressed. So I had a big heavy oak dresser. I scooted that dude around in front of the bedroom door, and I laid down on the bed. And I figured that would slow it down enough. If it tried to get in, I could get off 2 or 3 shots. And I laid down on the bed with that shotgun laying beside me, and the door was right there, bedroom door. And at that time, I didn't have a headboard on the bed, so I kept the bed shoved up against the wall to keep the pillow from falling off the back of the bed. And I lay down, and Bo wouldn't come out of the closet, and Mandy wouldn't come out from under the bed. And I'd have felt better if I could have got one of them to get out from under there and maybe try to protect me or something, or warn me something was coming. But they not, hell no. You started this crap, you finish it, they wouldn't help me out any at all. So after a while, I guess about 45 minutes, I fell sound asleep. And all of a sudden there was a big BAM! That son of a gun hit the wall, hit the side of the house, right there on the other side of the wall from where my head was. He hit it hard enough, it deflected the wall, and it scooted the bed out from the wall about that far. About 4 or 5 inches. And back then I weighed about 75 pounds more than what I weigh now. I weighed a little over 300 pounds. And actually I weighed about 325. It hit that wall so hard that it scooted the bed and everything with me on it about 4 or 5 inches away from the wall. Mandy comes scrambling out of that thing out from under there like her tail was on fire, and runs over and dives over there in the closet where Bo was. And I jumped up and I whirled around and I pointed the shotgun at the wall, and of course I wasn't going to shoot through the wall. It was a rented house, but anyway, it had aluminum siding on it. And that son of a gun started, all of a sudden I heard this. It walked down the entire length of the back of the house, scratching it, dragging its fingernails on that siding. And like I said, it just let me know that if it wanted me, it had me. And like I said, they are the masters of intimidation. Went out there the next day and looked, and sure enough, you could see the drag marks down the back of the house. Now, I will tell you now, where I live now, you can go up there right now and see multiple sets of drag marks down the back of that house. And last week, they came. I saw one of the ones that lives on our farm now. Saw him out across the field, and I lit him up with a spotlight 3 times. The third time, he just stood out there and looking at me. And I said, all right, I'll leave him alone. I went in the house, I sat down in my lazy boy chair right there next to the wall, and I was reared back reading. And he came up, and now he didn't want this out of the house, but he came up and just like that. right on the back wall of the house, right beside my elbow, you know, right next to where I was. And then he walked down the side of the house, dragging his fingernails. And they've done that several times there. There's multiple sets of fingernail drag marks in the back of that
How
house.
many times have I told you they're gonna do something like
Yeah.
I told you.
Yeah.
If he's gone for a little while and you're familiar with them boogers,
Yep.
and then you've been gone a while and you come back to the house, I told him, I said, expect one to come up and knock on the house. He's like, why? I said, you've been gone a few days. They know when you're gone. I said, expect one to come up there and tap on the house, and it wasn't that much longer to come up there and tap on the house. I mean, if they get familiar with you like Greg, they get familiar with Greg where he's hunting, he's in his house, and I keep telling him, I said, they want him there because they know he's not going to hurt them. He's not tried to put up cameras. He's not tried to disturb them, and they would rather have him there than to have something they don't want. And that's the way it was on our farm. At night, they had the farm. The farm was theirs at night, and at daytime, it was ours. We didn't let nobody come on there hunting. We took care of them. We planted fields for them. My grandma would give them food all the damn time. She cooked like an army every night. There wasn't three of us there. But I didn't never have to worry about my grandfolks when I left them out of there because somebody had been a damn idiot to go in there. And it's like divine intervention. I met Greg, I met Al through Coonbo. Immediately felt like family, like I knew. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I started talking about our farm and where it was at. He started asking me about his kinfolks. And come to find out, where we bought our feed and seeds was from his uncle's feed and seeds. And then got to talking to Al, because I mentioned Red Bay. Pretty much all the farms around where we was at was family. I could walk miles in any direction. I was on somebody's kinfolk, but I had permission to be there. But got talking about it, and there was some land, Red Bay, which is a nasty swampy area, and my kinfolk wouldn't touch it, buy it, have nothing to do with it, because they knew it was bad news. Al's uncle, that was his land, and then they got. You know, what's the chances of that? These boys out of North Alabama, that far away, and his uncle, we buy our feed and seed from, and then the guy that lives behind, so there's Al's uncle. And then I got talking about Al. I said, did you ever see the White House over there with the columns, and the guy's got a bunker in the ground? And he's like, yeah, I wondered what it was. I said, that was my granddaddy's friend. I said, them bad things, them bear men that come out of Red Bay Swamp. I said they'd come up to his house at night, and he had that bunker built, and at night he'd sleep in that bunker. And Al had went over there and seen the bunker. I mean, what are the chances? But tell you something, one of the scariest things that ever happened to me. I grew up around these boogers. I grew up in a bad situation, abused with my stepmother and brother. And a lot of times it was safe for me to sleep in the woods and stay in the house. And so these boogers had accepted me. I'd go out there and sleep in the woods. They didn't. As long as they was there, I knew we're not going to hunt. I mean, we never had wild dogs, cougars, anything like that come on our farm. They wouldn't make it. And you know, so I'm used to seeing these things. I've seen them all my life. I consider them friends or like family. I mean, they never tried to harm me in any way whatsoever. I mean, in some situations that helped. And but anyway, my granddaddy kept talking about this damn beer man. We called them creek people. The regular ones at our house called them creek people. But my granddaddy kept talking about these bear men. You know, and I had never seen one. What in the hell is a damn bear man? He said, well, they're different than what we got here. He said, they're dangerous. He said, if you see one of them, you need to get to the house. You don't need to go down the Red Bay Swamp. You do not need to go to the Natural Bridge. He said, Red Bay Swamp's behind us. He said, Natural Bridge is north of us. He said, they come through our property in the spring and the fall. He said, so during that time, he said, you don't need to be monkeying around too far away from his house. He said, you damn sure don't need to go down that Red Bay hunt. He said, you don't go to Natural Bridge hunt. Okay, you know, I said, I'm not saying all these boogers at houses. It can't be nothing no different than that, you know. Well, I was wrong. I had somebody staying at the house one weekend, and at 3 in the morning, the old boy woke up screaming and hollering that there was a red-eyed monster in the window. So, me and Grandma, I put him in the middle room where there wasn't no windows. Me and Grandma went to the kitchen and talked, and I kept noticing these little blue lights in our bay window. My granddaddy would work on the radios, and then he would fix fence charging boxes, and you know, they got the colored lights on them. But I hadn't ever seen one with a blue light. So I came back there to where the bay window is, and I kind of looked at the kitchen table, and I'm looking at the little blue light, and no reflection. Well, there wasn't one. So I was like, hey. So I slide open the big bay window, poke my head out, my head's on the screen, and I look outside the house. Well, there's something very large standing 2 feet from this bay window right here. And I back up to Grandma. I said, it was right here on the side of the house. Anyway, she goes to the window, starts hooting and hollering. Anyway, this thing walks away. Well, I've got the light from the kitchen shining on it. You can see. And it's gray with sparks, kind of gray and black, sparse hair, but it's walking from you. It's walking all slumped over. And it walks on out around our scuppler vines and goes out into the field. Immediately, my grandma said, go start shutting the curtains, make sure the doors are locked. And my wife, she said, boy, listen to me, go shut the curtains and lock the door. Because that, by now, I didn't get a good look at this thing, real good look. I just knew it was walking. And it was just funny looking. Anyway, I walked around the side, and I knew it was going to come down the side of the house over there in the field, and then it had to jump our little other fence line that went into a big dairy farm. And I went up to the front window, and we had a ceiling fan, an attic fan, but we had it posted in the front window to draw air through the house. So I go up there to the fan, and I'm going to see this thing. I'm going to see what it is. I'm curious. I'm going to see. I was 16, 17. But anyway, this thing goes, and it gets right about to where the fence is, which is probably 80 feet in front of me. Well, it turns around, it looks at me, and then it stands up. Then when it stood up, I realized that a bear man is not a book. This thing, the first thing that popped into my mind was a damn gargoyle. I was looking, I didn't know what the hell I was. It looked like no dog man. This thing looked like a bear. This thing had a short snout. This thing looked more like had a bear head on it. And didn't have no dog ears, nothing like that. But this thing had a narrow waist. It was massive, going up to his shoulder. This thing had hands like a coon, and its legs were funny. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. I mean, it terrified me. I backed up. Anyway, this thing closed the distance and had slipped up there on its knees on the porch and was looking through the damn fan. And I'm sitting back on an ottoman, maybe 4 feet away at the most. And while I'm looking at it, it reaches over and jiggles the front door. Heart jumped out of my chest. The only thing I knew to do was start praying. I started praying. Anyway, it took off and left. I'm in shock. Guys stirs up, run around with boogies, go down and sleep with this thing had me terrified. Because I'd never heard of a juggling. I never heard of that. Everybody thinks it's got to be a juggling. But still, that goes, there's other things out there. It's not just boogers out there. There is, people don't see them as much, but there is some bad things out there. That's about it.
I'm going to touch on something, but I'm going to back the door.
Huh?
Yeah.
I slept around.
Guys, when I talked, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, something like that. I talked about, probably some of y'all saw it on our Woodwalkerz podcast when I talked about I was sitting in my recliner and it was raining, the wind was blowing, and I've got a metal roof. And I heard something basically crashed the back side, the back corner, opposite corner of the building, my cabin where I was at. And it wasn't a normal, like they'd slap the wall. It was a massive boom when it hit. And it didn't stop at that. I hear like scuffling, galloping. I don't really know how to describe it. But in my mind, when you see a silverback gorilla and he's like running and they don't go forward, they kind of go like idling sideways, and it's like hands and then feet, hands and then feet. That's what I'm hearing. That, you know, in my mind, there's something scuttling over. And I listen to this thing come up the roof line, over the peak, down the roof line where I'm at, and the damn thing stopped exactly straight above my head. I'm talking about if I took the 357 Magnum that I grabbed off the damn table beside me and jerked out of the holster, and I'm sitting holding it like this, and I've done thumb cocked it at the ceiling because I'm thinking this damn thing's fixing to come through the roof. If I'd have shot straight above my head, I would have hit it somewhere. I would have hit the thing. And it got quiet for a good 60 seconds. It came from this way, it got quiet, and when it left, it went this way and ran down the roof line, and it got quiet at the end of the cabin where they usually hit the wall. That's where they usually hit the wall now, is on this end by the bedroom. Guys, look, I'm crippled up, been on crutches, wheelchair crutches. Everybody's like, well, did you go look for signs? I'm like, hell no, I can't get out of the damn recliner.
You didn't take a picture?
I didn't do nothing. All I could do was sit in a recliner because, you know, I'm crippled. Well, Brother Troy here comes and sees me, what, 3 weekends ago? 3 weekends ago. This was about a week after all this happened. Well, since I've been crippled, I can't get on top of my roof and maintain cleaning the pine straw off, and there's a pretty big layer of pine straw on the roof, and then I've got a lot of oaks and elms and stuff, you know, hardwoods like this around my cabin, but there is a good many pines. So the ground's got a lot of leaf litter and a lot of pine straw. Well, Troy shows up, and I'm telling him about what's happened, and I just told him on the phone, but I'm telling him again. The next thing I know, he's outside, and I hear him out there on the porch doing something, and then he goes to my back porch, and then he's climbed up on the handrail where you can see on the roof, and I'll just let Troy tell you all what he found.
First of all, I used to get paid to track deer and people, so I'm pretty good at tracking stuff. Georgia Tracker is online now. But anyway, I go up there and you can follow this thing because they got a bunch of pine straw dumped on that roof, and you can follow from the scuffs and the scuffed up pine straw where I told him where it was. Thought it jumped from a tree onto the roof, and it's pretty far away. If it had jumped out of that tree on the roof, it'd have come through on the roof. So it had to have been one pushed another one up there. And it couldn't have been, if one was up, it couldn't have been too big because the way the tin hangs over it, it bent the hell out of it. So it looks like a juvenile was put up there by another one. But you could follow it into pine straw where it actually went across the roof, right above his chair. And then when it went off the roof where it hit the pine straw, it blew out the pine straw when it hit the ground. I come in and told him, I said, dude, it was up there. I said, I can't say, since y'all ain't got bears up here, I said, you know, it's kind of narrows the suspects. I said, it wasn't a cat, you'd have never heard a cat. I said, but I said, it had to have been one up there. The evidence is up there. You can see the tracks right where it went across. I said, but it didn't come across like you thought. I said, it come across more towards the bedroom, but it's the piled up straws right above your chair. And I said, you can see where it went that way off the end. And I said, then I got down there and you could see where the damn pine straw was blown out.
Tell them some of the experiences you've had at the man cave.
Yeah, they're there. But and I first the second time I had went over there with Greg, I told him first time I told him, I said, dude, you got good boogers over here. I said, these ain't bad. I said, over there where I'm at, Barn Swamp area and floodplains, I said, we got some bad boogers. I said, you ain't got a whole lot to worry about over here. I said, these boogers are good. I said, if they wasn't, man, you would know. I said, you just need to make peace with them. I said, they're not, first of all, they're not no orangutans, they're not no chimpanzees. They are different type human. They just different. They have different abilities we have, and everybody wants to go woo about some of this stuff, but yeah, they can do some stuff that it's kind of undescribable. I mean, jump out of a tree 30, 40 feet, hit the ground, and run. Where, if you know anything about bears, I mean, a bear would shatter his legs coming out of a tree like that. Anything that heavy hitting the ground would shatter your legs. These things can hit the ground and they're gone. These things can spider crawl on the ground, which still freaks me the hell out.
Yeah.
I mean, something that big should not be able to do that. And then they can mess around with your batteries and your game cameras. They do all kind of crazy stuff that falls into the woo category. But the woo category is just stuff we don't quite understand yet. But they have a lot of it. And Greg's, I'm telling you, Greg's bankhead's loaded with it. But luckily there's enough food sources and all kind of stuff around there that they're not that aggressive. And I'm gonna tell you folks, if you go behind your local city dump, that's where you're gonna find some aggressive, because that is prime territory. And if you're researching near some dumps and stuff where a lot of food goes in there, you gotta be careful, because the biggest and the baddest are gonna be where them dumps are. Or if you're near a bunch of chicken houses, they only burn up so many birds to please the inspectors. The rest of them they dump in holes, because we used to too. And that chicken hole is like a smorgasbord, because they ain't just going after the chickens. They'll sit back and wait for every predator that comes up there, and they got a choice on what they want to eat. They eat coyotes, they eat possums, bobcats, and they'll set traps. They used to steal dairy cows and then go in there in our farm and they would dig a pit. They'd eat the guts out of the dairy cow, but then they would put that dairy cow down in that pit and wait. And then anything that come to that smell, get down in that hole with that dairy cow. I mean, that one cow, we ain't telling how many meals they could make off the stuff that was coming in there to the dairy cow. And sometimes these little pits would be in the middle of nowhere. Because I first seen them, I said, who in the hell? Uncle Richard had the dairy farm. I said, how in the hell does Uncle Richard get down here? And he damn dug this hole, put his cow in it. Why didn't he cover the damn thing up? Well, when I got up there looking, there wasn't no shovel marks, it was hand marks on it. And the first one I found, I had been over there hunting, and my tree, I could see something down in the bushes in the swamp. And I'm like, so I'm curious, I went down there to look. Well, when I got down there, first of all, I noticed there wasn't no shovel marks, nothing like that. It was, a smaller dairy cow, had been gutted, and it's down in this hole. And anyway, I get over there looking in the hole, all of a sudden the damn side of the cow starts moving. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, these damn things, what the hell is this, zombie cow? What the hell is this? Anyway,